Welcome to Bound by Books, a podcast of 5 authors across the genres talking about the one thing we're all bound by, books. Welcome to today's broadcast. I am Sherri Hayes, and I am joined today by Marianne Morea. Hi, Marianne.
Hi, Sherri. Good to be here. Well, today we are talking about what we would have told our younger author selves, what we wish we knew then, what we know now. And we have 7 topics. It was we could have gone on and on, but we narrowed it down to the top 7, lucky 7 of things that you guys should know.
This was kind of one of those topics that, I really wish these things there would have been like a publishing, being an author 101 type of thing, and been Agreed. Like, here are the things that you should know as a brand new author. And after over 10 years in the industry of being published, I have learned so much, and we're going to touch on some of those things today and see that. So, well, the first thing we Marianne and I decided on was that there is always more to learn.
That's right. I think it goes back to what I used to like to think when I was in art school, because I have a degree in journalism and a master's in fine art, was that when you think you know it all, you lose your edge. And so there's always more to learn. You always have to hone your craft. And besides the fact, not just the writing craft, the market is changing every single day. There's new technologies and new things that are happening. Let's talk about that a little more. Let's get into that a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that when I first started in this industry, I really thought that there was a list of things that you did. You wrote the book, you sent it to your editor, you went through all your edits, you picked your cover and all that, all the design and stuff. And then you went through you set up a blog tour, and you
remember those?
I know, which doesn't even happen that much anymore. And then you had a release day party, and you did all that. And that was then the book was out in the ether, and you waited for the reviews to come in, and you kind of waited for the sales to come in and all this stuff. That was kind of my introduction, and I just kind of thought it just followed after that. I had no experience in the industry prior to my first published novel. And so I just thought that was how it was and what you did, and you just went on with it. And yeah, there was so much more to it than that. And
one of the things that I wish I had done was that I researched my own information before taking advice from people who later on I found out knew squat. They thought they knew everything, but they didn't, and I don't care how long they were plodding along. They didn't know anything about marketing. They didn't know anything about promotion, and I listened to them, and I listened to the naysayers about things that I could have gotten involved in early on, and was just like, okay, if they're not doing it, then maybe I shouldn't be doing it either, because, if they were doing it, then I would know it was good, instead of researching it myself. And that's a real newbie mistake, because, sometimes things that are trend, if somebody doesn't want to jump onto it, not saying that you have to write to trend, but what I mean is marketing trends. You have to see what's working in the industry now, because it may not work tomorrow.
Well, and it's very genre specific.
True.
That's one thing that I guess along those same lines, that's one thing that I really learned with more time and experience in this industry, is that marketing and the business and just being an author is so genre specific. What works for you as a paranormal author, Marianne, it may not work for me as a steamy contemporary.
True. That's very
author.
True.
So it could be the advice that somebody is giving you could be good advice in their genre.
Right. Absolutely.
But it's very, if you have a sweet contemporary author giving you, or a women's fiction author or something like that, giving you advice, you really need to kind of take that advice, don't dismiss it, but take it with a grain of salt and do your research on it, because again, what works for them may not work for you. So
That's true. It's very true. I went to Romance Author Mastermind in Houston in 2018, and it was geared more towards your genre. I'll tell you right now, it was not really geared towards anything paranormal. It was mostly contemporary and mostly very, very steamy contemporary. And I had somebody look at my covers who was like basically an erotic romance author, and she was telling me, "Oh, well, you need to do this and you need to do that and whatnot." And I walked away, and then somebody took me by the arm, and she says to me, she goes, "You do know she doesn't write your genre." I said, "No, I know." I mean, at that point, by 2018, I was kind of, word to the wise, kind of knew the drill. Right. And you just let people talk, because most authors are very well meaning. They're not. No one's going to try and steer you wrong because on purpose, And if they are, there's a special place in hell for them, because solidarity, baby, solidarity. So. And the other thing I wish I had done, in terms of there's always more to learn, is even though I have a degree in journalism and that's where I started out, writing, wordsmithing was always my thing. And, because I did have an eye for cover art, because I do have that background in graphic design, is I still wish I had taken refresher courses, because there's a difference between writing in a journalistic fashion than there is writing fiction, and fiction craft has its own mechanics of writing that you need to make sure that you know, or that at least that you're familiarize yourself with, like passive voice, the overuse of ancillary words like just and like and that, and ly adverbs being lazy writing and so forth. There's and being able to have fresh writing instead of using cliched writing and so forth. I wish I had done that earlier on. So what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a journalism degree, and I never kind of went into this with any type of aspirations to be a published author on the onset. It was purely by chance that I went down this road. But it was really my editors that took me kind of under their wing, and I learned through experience. I learned to kind of moderate my own writing. But again, it was a constant, and it is still a constant learning process. I have to be aware when I'm writing to make sure, like you're saying, don't overuse the word just or though or however or but or because or all those lovely words that in like casual speech we use all the time. You can't, it just doesn't sound right when you're using them in a writing capacity and somebody's reading it. So you've got to learn that, and really, whether you hone your craft in a classroom or you hone your craft through learning and experience, more like I did with a good editor. That the
operative word in that sentence is good editor.
Good. Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you send your book to an editor and they do not, and you have very little red or markings on your story, especially if you are a new author, go find another editor.
Yeah.
Because I can't imagine. I mean, seriously, I have never met I have yet to come across an author, especially a author that's been doing it less than a few years, who can send their manuscript to an editor and not have it marked to high heaven.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's just it, because it's an editor's job to nitpick over the littlest things. It doesn't mean you have to accept all of those things that they are proposing that are to be changed.
True.
But they should be flagging things that could potentially be said a different way, or maybe
tightening your words
better. Yeah,
tightening it up.
You really need this sentence, type things. But that's something, but that's the learning process. And I still expect, even after 10 plus years in this industry, I still expect, when I send my manuscript to my editor, I still expect to get a ton of corrections sent back to me. Doesn't mean I'm a bad writer. It just means that my strong suit is not grammar or spelling. I know that. And I do really good with storylines and plot lines and, rising and falling action stuff. I am more of a storyteller than I am a traditional writer. So I know where my strengths are. And that's, I guess, kind of another thing is know what your strengths are, know what your weaknesses are, and build your learning around those things.
Absolutely.
And
when I wrote Blood Legacy and I sent it to an editor, her name was Tess McCall at the time. She was also a writer. She sent it back to me and says, I'm not going to read the rest of this until you look at this. And she sent me a PDF of a file that was called Sharpening the Quill. And you can't really find it anywhere anymore. And I actually, when I moved and was packing up my office, I found my printout, and it was everything that a writer needs to know, about passive voice and keeping, instead of saying things in 3 sentences that could be said in one, tightening your prose, staying away from purple prose, that type of a thing, and showing, not telling, all of those things that writers need to know. Well, fiction writers need to know. And so I kept it, because who the hell knows when it might come in handy, if I want to help somebody up, up the ranks, up the ladder. So
and there's always need, there's always need for refreshers too, because there's so much to learn, to know, that it's not a bad idea to go back and look at some of your past notes, be like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. And now I kind of know more. It's kind of the same deal of when you go into a seminar, like say it's a 4-hour seminar, and they just throw all this information at you. It's just it's literally like throwing, goop at a wall. It's like, who hoped that a few things stick? Whereas if you have your notes or what have you, you can go back, 6 months, a year, 2 years later. And now that you've really honed those few things that stuck to the wall while you're in that seminar, able to other things that they talked about may resonate with you, and then you can build on those. So that should lead us kind of to our number 2. Treat your business like a business.
I think a lot of new authors don't do that. I think they treat it like it's a hobby, or they treat it as if it's okay, I'm going to try this and see what happens. There are so many things that you have to do. You have to approach your writing business like any other publishing house, because since you are self-published, therefore the operative word in that sentence is publish, as in publisher. You are the publisher. Wow. So therefore you have to surround yourself with a staff. You have to have a good editor. You have to have a good cover designer. You have to have a proofreader. You have to be able to format. And if you can't format it properly, you have to have a formatter. But and you have to have a marketing plan. And I think a lot of new authors don't realize that this is multifaceted in terms of treating your business like a business. So
yes, I would totally agree with that. I think a lot of newbie authors do go into it as like, oh, this is fun, this is new and so exciting, I'm going to be published, people are going to actually be reading my story. And they don't really approach it as a business. They don't sit down and create a budget as to what they are going to allocate to cover design, what they're going to allocate towards editing, what they're going to allocate towards formatting if they're not doing it themselves, what they're going to allocate towards marketing. You really need to figure all those things out. And marketing, for the most part, is going to cost you something. Now, it could potentially just cost you time. There are marketing avenues you can go down that, are free. Not a ton of them anymore, but there are a few, but those usually take a lot of time.
Yeah.
So again, which is fine, you can do that, but you need to go in with a game plan. You need to have a marketing plan. You need to have, like you said, those people around you, a good editor, and people who will be honest. That is probably the biggest thing. You do not want someone who is just going to blow smoke up your backside.
I was going to say sunshine, but smoke works too. So, but I it's true. And this actually builds on what we were just talking about, where there's always more to learn. That, where I said about research my own information before taking advice. Just don't jump. And just because somebody says Joe Blow's, a book tour is, amazeballs and you should do it. Research it. Make sure that that the bloggers that they have on the tour actually read the book. If they actually put reviews up, if they have a following, are the genres that they read your genre? You're not going to send a paranormal, romantic suspense to somebody who only reads sweet Christian romance. You're just not going to do that. So you have to do your research. The other thing that I wish that I had told myself back then is that business is business, and that I wish I was a little more selfish, and that I treated the author community that I was starting to, get to know more like colleagues, instead of looking at them like, oh, they're my friends. Oh, let's have a play date and get on, because because back in the day, it was all chats. You need to branch out. Just because, you treat them as colleagues and you vet them. You need to vet their knowledge base before you take things that they say as verbatim, because you don't know. You don't know.
Yeah, so. You really don't. Because I think when you're a newbie and you don't know as much, and you really have to look at the big picture. Again, it kind of goes back to the first thing we said. There's always more to learn, and treating your business like a business is one of those big components. And I would say along those same lines, track your sales, track your spending, because I tell you, I did not do this until about 2-3 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew about how much I was spending, but I wasn't comparing that to my income. Like, I wasn't pairing the two. I wasn't figuring my ROI, my return on investment. And if you're treating it like a business, you need to. Any good business owner, small business owner especially, but even big corporations, they track their income and expenses.
Right.
It's just what
accounts payable, accounts receivable.
But there are so many authors that don't.
Well,
they just don't.
I think when you first start out in this business, at least for me, it was like an exhale, because it was like, oh my God, I found people who I found my tribe. And people who talk, who speak my language, that I could bounce ideas off of. I can brainstorm book ideas, which is another thing. Treat your business like a business. Keep your friggin' stories close to the vest, because ideas cannot be copyrighted, and you're going to be waxing euphoric about this great idea, and somebody who has, better traction and faster writing than you can put it out before you. I mean, most people in the writing community are ethical and they won't do that, but you never know. And then what do you do? It only takes one. So
it only takes one. Well, that kind of brings us to number 3. And that is one that you actually kind of had a big conversation about in a recent conference, and that is stay in your lane. Now, what exactly does that mean? That means do not genre hop all over the place, because you need to have time to build your audience. If you are writing, say, in 5 different genres, it is going, unless you are putting out 10 books a year, you are
even then.
Even then that's challenging. But I would say you would have to put out probably 10 books a year in order to build that audience, in order to really get your foothold in all 5 of those genres. It's much easier to pick one or two genres and just stay in those lanes and write and build your audience. Now, if you want to branch out into those other 3 genres, that's fine eventually. But especially when you're first starting out, you really have got to stay in your lane. You've got to, plus it screws up the algorithms.
Yes.
If you're writing in so many different genres, those algorithms are like, what, huh? Where'd you go? What are you doing?
Yep.
And, and it makes it harder for readers to
Yeah.
find.
And for those of you who don't understand what that means, the algorithms basically track people who have looked at your book, people who have bought your book, people who have bought books that are like your book.
Mm-hmm.
And they will show your book to those people simply because the keywords and the tropes that are in your blurb and in your search words, Amazon and the other distribution channels will show it to them. So if you're publishing steamy and then you're publishing sweet and then you're publishing suspense and mystery, or not exactly sweet, but YA, that type of a thing, you're all over the place. Now, no one is saying you can't. Neither Sherri or I are saying you can't write in those genres. But as I learned, because I tend to be a genre hopper when I have like 40 books out, and some of them are YA, some of them are paranormal women's fiction, some of them are steamy, some of them are not, So anyway, I brought up the problem that I was having, and I was basically told point blank, you need pen names. And we broke it up that I needed 3 pen names. My name, Marianne Morea. Then I need one for my paranormal women's fiction and paranormal cozy mysteries. That's Marianne Danbury. And then for my YA stuff, M.A. Morea. So I kept them kind of similar so that they're still me, and my, and that readers who have picked up my books when they were all over the place won't feel like, oh my God, somebody stole her book. It's still recognizable as me. But the reason is so that these also bots that are attached to these algorithms will be straight. And more importantly, it was explained to me that when you write a book in a specific genre at a specific heat level, it's a contract that you make with your reader. And then a reader picks up that book and they read it, they love it, they want the next one. And if they pick up something else by you and it's not that same format, not that same level of heat or the type of writing, they're going to be disappointed, and they're basically going to say, what the heck, and that's a violation of your contract that you made with that reader. It's because that reader needs to be able to expect from you what you produce. Now, that's why I have the 3 pen names. So,
Right. Now with me, I write in 2 genres, but they're very similar genres. And there are a lot of reader crossovers. So I do not have a pen name, nor do I plan on having a pen name, but I write in steamy contemporary, and then I write in BDSM erotic romance. But because I'm steamy. Now, if I wrote sweet contemporary and BDSM erotic romance, I would need 2 pen names.
Yes.
Because those do not, while they may have some crossover, if I had a reader that read some of my sweet stuff, and then they saw, my name over here on this BDSM erotic, and they picked it up, not, just going, oh, I've read her. I love this book. I'm going to pick up this. And then they read that, they could potentially never read me again.
Yes.
Because I broke the contract.
Right.
Because of that. So just something that I wish I would have known. I would have
me too.
Kind of had that discussion. Someone would have told me, but because again, that's something that I really learned within the last year or so, how important that is. I've kind of always known for a while, at least. I had an author friend of mine who loved to genre hop, and she had a very hard time gaining traction. This was I'd probably been in this industry about 4 years at that point. And we were having this conversation. She's like, my sales just aren't going anywhere. I don't know what to do. I'm contacting blogs. I'm putting my book out there, and I'm just not getting any traction. And I'm like, well, you have a paranormal ghost story. You have a dystopian futuristic trilogy. And then you have a Tudor romance. Those do not go together.
No.
So you're having a very hard time. So I did kind of know that after a few years in the industry, but again, to me, that is something that I think as soon as you publish your first book, before that second book comes out, before you even start writing your second book, that's something that would be really nice for new authors to know, because it really does affect your trajectory and your marketing. So it's very, very, very
this
important.
also goes back to do your own research, because I asked people that I knew and they're like, oh no, as long as it's all paranormal, it should be fine. Well, no, in certain respects, like Marianne Danbury is for paranormal women's fiction and paranormal cozy mysteries. And the only reason why that's okay is because the readership crosses over, because the demographic is the same age bracket, the same type of expectation, because in paranormal women's fiction, there's mystery, there's splashes of romance, but there's no sex. And the same thing in cozy mystery, paranormal cozy mystery, it's for, the women who read those books are older, and there may be hints of romance, but there's no cussing, there's no sex, there's flirtations and so forth. So it's kind of the same, it's under the same umbrella. So therefore I can have the same pen name for that, but there's no way I could have the YA stuff be the same as my paranormal, my steamy paranormal romantic suspenses and paranormal vampire fantasies, forget it, so I wish I wish I had done the research better. And this is why we're doing this, so that you guys out there listening to us don't make the same mistakes that we made.
Yes, because these are very common mistakes. These are not just things that the two of us have made, because our group of 5, we talk about stuff all the time, and specifically in relations to marketing and our books. And this is a subject that has came up a lot. That all of us kind of were like, really wish I would have considered that years ago, because we've all been in the industry for around 10 years. And so, we all have a lot of experience, but this is all stuff that it's like, oh, wow, I really wish somebody would have told me this, 6, 7, 8 years ago.
Back in the day. I wasn't
just now kind of figuring it out now. Well, that kind of leads us to number 4, and that is pay attention to the changing industry. Now, I know industries in general change, but I will say that aside from probably the tech industry in and of itself, this has to be one of the most frequently changing industries that I know of. I mean, my husband and I own our own woodworking business, so I'm familiar with the changes of that industry. But the last major change in that industry was a CNC router machine. And that was 20 years ago, 30 years ago. I mean, there's been other smaller things, but not huge like that. That was like industry changing. This industry, the book industry, from an author's perspective, there's stuff that changes almost on a daily basis. You've got so much. Just recently we have Kendall Vella came up. That was, potentially game changer. There's constantly different.
You have to buy tokens, not money. You have to pay with tokens. You have to purchase the tokens, like back in the day when you had to have tokens to play the arcade games, that type of a thing. I can remember the very first, I was on an airplane in 2007 this is before I even started writing. I was heading on vacation with my family, and there was a woman sitting catty cornered from me in 2 rows up on the aisle, and she had a very first Kindle.
Mhm.
And I kept thinking, what the hell is that? What is that? And it was the very first Kindle. And back then there probably was probably hardly any books available. And the books that were probably on it were probably classics that were public domain that Amazon was able to put up for free, just to get people to start, to try the device.
To give it a shot.
The heyday of Kindle was between 2010 and 2012, 2013. And in terms of for authors, not readers, for authors to get on the bandwagon with Kindle 1.0, which was Kindle Unlimited 1.0, which started in 2013, where you got paid per download as opposed to what they do now, which is by page read. And there are so many author friends of mine who said, don't do it. Don't do it. People still want paper. They don't want this digital stuff. And I had one author friend who said, you better do it. If you don't do it, you're going to regret it. And she hit the New York Times bestseller list 3 months in a row. And now it's been picked up by a major, it's years now that she was picked up by a major publisher and has had her stuff go international and has translated into many things. And that's because she didn't listen to the mob. She listened to her own business, her own business sense. She took a chance. And with Kindle Vella, it's the same thing. Is it paying off? We have 2 authors in the 5 of amongst the 5 of us that are getting bonuses now. I am not, but then again, I only have 4 episodes up, so, and I have done really no marketing for it. So yeah, pay attention to the changes in the industry, because you never know what you're going to try, that you're going to be, what is the term they use, Sherri? Early adopter. That's the word, early adopter. They say early adopters are the ones who jump on, who have a chance that if something takes off, that they're going to go with it. It'll be the wind beneath their wings to have them take off. TikTok is another thing. TikTok sells books is a huge thing now, but people who got involved with it, 6 months ago are the ones who are reaping the benefit, because now everybody and their brother is jumping on TikTok. So it's saturated. So, I tried it. And I had a modicum of success with it, but it's a little too much involved for me to do on a daily basis, where you have to put out, so many videos per day. But there are Danielle Bannister, Hannah Byron, and Tina Moss are the 3 other girls out of our 5, and they are TikTokers par excellence, and they are reaping the benefits of it. So if it's something that you lean towards, something that you feel an affinity for, an inclination to do, you should do it. I personally, have a hard time with it.
Yeah. But I think that kind of is the TikTok and all of those social media platforms, that's again, kind of something that is always constantly changing. Who would have thought 3 years ago that we would be talking about the latest trend in book marketing is making short
videos,
videos and posting them on this new site called TikTok, and that it was actually having an effect on author sales. Nobody would even have dreamed that was that was the case. And it's not just social media, though. It is, the industry is constantly changing. The resources that authors use or have at their disposal, how they track their sales, what they use to distribute their arcs to readers, all of those things. It's a laundry list of things that's constantly changing. So it just, you really have to stay at it. It really this kind of goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning of this episode, with there's always more to learn. And it definitely has, the industry itself, not just the craft, but the industry itself
Sure.
is
I mean,
one of those things.
perfect example for me is back in 2013 when when KDP allowed books to be put up for free, and have free downloads to Kindle Unlimited. I had 25,000 downloads of book 1 in the Cursed by Blood series, which is Hunter's Blood. But because I didn't understand marketing back in the day, I didn't have a call to action in the back of the book. If you like this, pick up book 2, and then with a link. I didn't have that, and I should have. It goes back to not knowing, just not knowing.
Right. Which leads us into number 5. Good marketing is as important as a good story.
Yes.
And that kind of goes with what you were just saying with the back matter. I mean, back matter is so important. And I did not know this until a couple of years ago.
Yep.
I mean, this is something you would think would have been, especially since I was originally with the publisher, you would have thought that that would have been something that was explained to me, that was talked about, that I would have seen. But back then, nope. It wasn't done, or it wasn't commonplace. And so now back matter is so important, because when a reader gets to the end of your book, you want them to go purchase the next book. They just read your book, and hopefully they loved it.
And you want them to sign up for your newsletter, and you want them to sign up for your, go to your website. There's a lot of things. I mean, we have heard that the back of the book, in terms of back matter, is the most priceless real estate in the book.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I would totally agree with that, because again, you've already hopefully, if you've done your job and done it well, you have hooked the reader. You have gotten them interested, and they enjoyed your story. So they have that emotional connection at that point. So you should be able to, hopefully, they will want to read more. They would be like, oh, I really like this story. I wonder what else this author has written. What else can I read by this author? And you don't want to make it difficult for them to find out that information, because the more they have to dig to find it, the less likely they're going to dig.
Now, we had a scare, I guess, about, was it a week ago or was it 2 weeks ago? Time is just flying, where Facebook went down for almost a day. Was it 15 hours it went down?
It was a long time. Yes.
Yeah. And readers, hook up with authors on social media. And for a certain age demographic, Facebook is a place where we advertise. So for that period of time, whatever it was, a day and a half, 12, 15 hours, we had no way of of getting in touch with our readers, and vice versa. Or, our readers were lost to us as well. And that put a scare through everybody, because it's like, okay, this is what I relied on. Social media is what I relied on to do my marketing. And basically you realize at that point in time that it can't be the only thing that you rely on. It can't be. You have to have other avenues of marketing, and it can't be something that you think about, like Sherri was saying. What did you say? Don't wait until, go ahead, finish.
Oh yeah. Don't wait until you hit publish to start promoting.
Right.
So yeah. Just, you need, that's probably another thing that, again, it's another thing that I really did not think about or realize that was a thing that you should be doing. When I first published, because I didn't start promoting my book, or really myself as an author, until I had my first book out. And that is not something you want to do. I mean, Alexandra Torre, if I'm saying her name right, Torre. Okay. It's one of the things she preaches in her marketing classes about Goodreads, is that you should be promoting that book, each and every book. You should be promoting it pretty much as soon as you start writing it.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
Building that potential readership, having people add your book to their TBR, getting them excited, putting little updates, I'm this far, I'm this far, and giving little unedited clips, things like that, getting people excited, talking about it. So yeah, I mean, that
Yeah.
was just something that wasn't done or wasn't told to me back then. So
The other thing is, like we were talking about with social media not being, the be all and end all. I mean, they're terrific vehicles, but when those vehicles are not around anymore for whatever reason, whether or not it's something the FCC does, or whether because it's the power grid that goes down or what have you, you have to still have a way to get in touch with your readers. And, and that brings us to, well,
I'm gonna jump. Yeah, no, we're gonna have to jump because we kind of
Yeah.
led into this and into number 7 and we skipped number 6, but that's
okay. We'll get to number
That's
6
okay.
after. We'll make number 6 number 8.
Exactly.
We'll flip flop them.
We'll flip flop them.
Is that you need a website and you need an email list, and that you cannot wait until after you've had your books out to start doing that. When do you have to have your call to action at the back of your book to sign up for your newsletter? Because the best thing you want to do is grow your newsletter organically. People who want to be in touch with you as an author, and not because they want to win a Kindle or because they want to win a free book or because they're fishing for treasure. You know what I mean? You don't want, I mean, treasure hunters have their place. They're looking for sales and they're looking for freebies. But the people that you want on your newsletter are readers that actually want to become super readers, which are people who are one clickers, who buy your book the minute that they hear it's coming out. They pre-order it the minute they hear it's coming out. That's your goal. And there are different echelons of reader at that point in time, because and everybody's got their place in the on the food chain. Everybody's got their place in the sphere. So, but your aim is for the top, the super reader. And sometimes they start off down here and then they keep going and they grow, they become that super reader. And the only way that you're going to do that is to get their email addresses and their information through the sign up at the back of your book, the call to action at the back of your book. And you're thinking, oh my God, I can't afford a newsletter. I can't afford to do that. It's so much money. There are newsletters out there. I know for a fact that MailerLite, which is one of the top ones along with MailChimp, MailerLite will let you have a free newsletter subscription service up to 2,000 subscribers. So think about how long it's going to take you to get 2,000 subscribers. Unless you've got a magic button somewhere that you want to share with everybody. Share with the class now. Where you can do this. Then that's what you want. That's what you can start off with, and then afterwards there are tiers that you pay for. So in terms of website, there are plenty of ones out there. But I'll tell you one thing I ran into just now, because like we keep going back to, there's always something to learn. Is that not only does you need an email, a website email, a newsletter email, like I have Marianne at mariannemorea.com, that you need a domain. You need to purchase a domain, and they can be as inexpensive as $10. You don't have to spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars, but you have to be able to have email that goes along with it. So you're, Susie Homemaker at susiehomemaker.com, that type of a thing. So and you have to verify that domain and that email through that domain. And the other thing you have to do is you have to authenticate it through a website. And those two things stop you from going to spam. So
it really is important. And I can't stress how much those two items, the website and the email list, are those. If you do nothing else as a new author, do those two things.
And a Facebook author page.
Yeah, of course, and that's free, so you should not have it. But as far as anything that could potentially cost you money, an email list and starting an email list and getting a website are so important. I cannot stress it enough how important those two things are, because one, if Facebook or TikTok or Instagram or whatever it is goes down, or say Facebook decides to be a little, nitpicky about something you post one day, and they decide that they're just going to shut your page down.
Yeah, which they have done. Put you in jail.
Yeah. We've had some authors who have been hacked too.
Yeah.
And they have, had to fight for a month or more to get their Facebook pages back. So any of those things could happen. If you have your email list, if you have, you own those, those subscribers, basically, you own those emails, you have their permission to send them emails directly to them, you have a direct connection with your readers.
Mm-hmm.
The website is just as important because it gives you a web presence. It legitimizes you as an author. It also makes you much easier to find. And I will say from personal experience, I share on my blog the books that I'm reading because I want to be, I want to share the love. If I'm reading an author, I want to, it gives them some promotion. And plus, if I like the book, then, great, I can gush about it and all this stuff. But I always, whenever I share another author's book on my blog, I always put links to that book on the blog on the blog post. You know how I find the buy links? On the author's website.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been so many times that I have went to go find the author's website and there's no website. And so I'm left going, okay, well, I guess I'm just putting an Amazon link here because I'm not going to spend an hour chasing down all your buy links to go to every single retailer to see if your book is on it. I'm just gonna go to one and there it is. It's gonna be there. But so I know that sounds kind of silly, but I have readers. I'm a wide author. So all my books are posted on Amazon, Apple, Barnes and Noble, Kobo, and Google Play. So I'm on the five major retailers. So I have readers that read on all of those retailers. So it makes sense that if your books are found on all those retailers, it would behoove you to have that information easily accessible so that other authors like me or bloggers who are looking for that information can very easily pull that and put it and attach it to a blog post or a social media or what have you. So it sounds kind of like very simple, but it really does. It helps with your Google presence, and it also really helps to just make your information accessible for
absolutely.
people who are wanting it. So that is really, really important. We'll go to our last one. Okay, which
cover design, my favorite
cover
thing.
Design. Yes,
next to world building, cover design.
So let me ask you something, because I was sharing with you before we went on the air that my first two covers were horrendous. I mean, I'm a little embarrassed about them at this point. But I didn't know any better. I mean, that's the only excuse that I have.
Well, I'm looking at some of the covers in the on the side over here that you've gotten. They look pretty good. They look great.
Yeah, they're probably because I don't have them up anymore. They're buried. They're buried. But the first two covers I did for my first book, which was Hidden Thread, which is now Strictly Professional. But back then when it first published, it was Hidden Thread. And then the first cover for Behind Closed Doors. Oh my goodness. The first cover for Behind Closed Doors. Okay, keep in mind that this is a steamy, contemporary romance. All right. My first cover for Behind Closed Doors was a door.
A door. Okay.
A door, like a front door to a house.
Okay.
That's it. No people, nothing else. It was just a front door, and it said with nice little, flowers on either side of it, with Behind Closed Doors and very scrolly text, and then my name at the bottom. That's it. That was the whole cover. Now, the question is how many steamy contemporary romance covers do you know that look like that?
None.
Oh yeah, that like I said, it was bad. So fast forward to now, and I have a couple cuddling in bed as my cover for Behind Closed Doors.
See, this is where my background in art and going to art school came into play, because I had my own artwork ripped to shreds. As you can tell, I've got PTSD. Ripped to shreds by the curators and by professors and so forth when I was going for my master's degree. When a cover artist sends me a cover, first off, they don't just start from scratch. No, I jump onto Photoshop and I do a complete comp for them. I pick the imagery, I pick the background, I pick the fonting that I think might work, the positioning and so forth, and just to kind of give me the feel. And then I hand that over to them and I say, okay, I don't have the time and I don't have the actual skills anymore, because I went to grad school in 1994 when, things were still pen and ink. My Photoshop skills are okay. I can do artwork for my ads. I can do graphics for, I did the logo for our Bound by Books, Yeah. So I've got some skill, but when it comes to actually making a cover pop the way it's supposed to,
right,
I leave it up to them. So I do the nitty gritty and I let them polish it and make it pretty. A lot of times they miss the mark, and I make them do it over and over again until when I look at my cover, if it makes me lose my breath, if it makes me go, then I know I've got a good cover. But if it makes me go, it's okay, then I know it's not a good cover. And then my readers are going to have the same reaction. It's okay, and I have had to change cover artists because of that.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to that, treating your business like a business, because you really do have to dot all your I's, cross all your T's, approach it as a business. It's not a hobby. Make sure all your legal ducks are in a row, because if it comes down to eventually having to pursue something in court, or potentially pursue something in court, you want to make sure that you are protected and your business is protected, because you are putting yourself out there and you are the brand. Yes, your covers are part of your brand,
right,
but ultimately you are the brand because you are the author. When you go to a book signing, readers aren't coming to see your covers. They're coming to see you. And so you have to approach that as, in a way, kind of like a celebrity does. Like, when they're going out and, going on the red carpet and stuff, they're presenting an image and they're presenting their brand. And you really have to, it's an all-encompassing thing. Your cover, your legal stuff, your website, your email list, all that stuff is your brand. And you really do have to protect that. And yeah, that I do agree what you went through was very, very shady,
I ended up having,
the least.
Just so that you people out there understand, I had to take 7 books. Oh no, it was 6 at the time. I had to take 6 books and I had to have those 6 books recovered. And when I went to the new cover artist to have them recovered, because it was either I went back to the cover artist who complained that I took the branding and did the whole, paying this invoice stuff. I didn't want to go back to her to have her do the new cover. So that meant I had, instead of getting 1 cover done, I had to have 6 done. And obviously the new cover artist gave me a break in the price because I was getting so many done at the same time. But I had her at the very beginning, before we went ahead, I had her write it in the contract that the branding belonged to me. So.
Oh, yes. The cover needing to match the John, doing your research.
Yeah.
Doing your research, because one of the things that, again, I didn't really cross my mind when I was a newbie author, and something I learned years later, was you really need to go on to Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Apple, and look at like the top 100 in your genre and see what types of covers are trending. Are they covers with sexy couples on them? Are they animated covers? Are they covers with scenery on them? are there certain colors that are prominent in the journal?
Fonts,
Fonts, all that
font
stuff.
placement, the placement of your name. Your name should be big and bold, and it should be in the same place on all of the books in the same series. You know, it's for continuity's sake, so that readers can. We had it explained to us that your cover is like a stop sign, and that it should, as soon as it should stop a reader and grab them by the face and basically say, you know, make them, compel them to pick it up and look and turn it over and read your blurb. And the blurb is the other part of the cover, because the back of a cover on a paperback is just as important as the front, in the sense that it's the blurb that's going to, if the cover has grabbed them by the face, the blurb is going to make their throat constrict, because they have to have the book now. They have to have it because it's that compelling. So, and there are things that you need to keep in, you need to have in your blurb, and those are your keywords and tropes. And it has to be succinct. You don't have to tell the whole damn story in the blurb. It has to be enough for them to hook them, that they want to look at, that they want more. So, and I think that's probably it. I'm going to plug an author friend who knows so much about email, about newsletters, and that is Holly Darling. She writes. She has a Facebook page called Holly Darling HQ, and she is an email guru when it comes to being able to get people to sign up for your newsletters and to give you their email address and what to do with it. So if you don't take anything else away from what Sherri and I have, the bevy of information we have laid at your feet right now, so that you don't make the same mistakes that we did, look that up and do your damn research. Do it.
Yes, do the research. That is kind of the theme for today. Do your research. There's always more to learn. So hopefully you enjoyed this episode of Bound by Books this week, and that you took at least a couple of nuggets of information away with you. I hope you will tune in next week at 12 noon Eastern time, and please stop by and check out our website, learn more about all of our hosts at www.boundbybookspodcast.com. Until next time, have a good week.
Bye-bye.
Wait! Before you go, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and check us out on our website, boundbybookspodcast.com.